Awesome. Okay.
Let's make sure Craig is
Yeah. I
recording.
mean, I think if they can hear us, we're good to go. I'm gonna commence. Hey, Eidolon.
Cool.
Okay.
Hello, guys. Can finally hear.
All right. I mean, I'm ready to go.
Awesome.
Like, I've literally already done the presentation, so it's gonna be awesome. Really nice. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. Um, all right. So, guys, points. We've been talking about points for about 13 minutes now, and we're so excited to share what we've been talking about. So points are obviously popping up everywhere. You know, the eigenlayer points, uh, points on points on points. I saw a tweet from Maverick Protocol the other day where you could earn 4 different points. Uh, and like it's turned into this giant speculative engine, basically. So is it good? That's kind of one of the first questions we asked is this like is this positive? And I think we landed on it is. It actually allows everyone to it allows the protocol to align early adopters more to the actual uh, protocol's needs, help, I guess, validate some of the thesis or test or initiate some of the flywheel without having to invest insane amounts of capital. The sort of the speculation is a, and if we can create enough of an incentive in the form of, well, what is, in today's or previous markets or previous cycles, equivalents of an airdrop, but this time we have the terms and conditions really clear to the point where everyone actually can have a timer and a set of rules and figure out how to maximize their capital and speculative points to get a portion of this airdrop. It's very much like another sort of way to bootstrap a market and bootstrap a protocol, but with way less cost. Frankly, it's quite. We don't think it's going to go anywhere. It's too effective at delivering value to protocols that there's no real reason to go back to the previous method of, hey, just kind of, shoot it at the wall and see and hope that you've got the right one. I don't know if you guys saw the Starknet airdrop I saw on Twitter yesterday, but here's an example of, people that are now used to points and being told, or like have had so much airdrop chasing in these last couple of years that there's expectations about what should work and what shouldn't. And if you didn't have a one requirement of like a minimum of ETH, you just missed out. Even if you had brought $1 million worth of value or volume to the network and otherwise helped validate it, you got completely snubbed, leaving people to feel that, a little bit jaded. So points just actually solves this problem by having it be transparent. And it also enables everyone to become competitive. So much of airdrops is like, oh my God, I got the biggest airdrop. I think a lot of people want that. And by making a leaderboard and by creating a competitive landscape, the protocol wins. So I just don't see the return to old sort of, there will always be a niche for like surprise, like there's nothing wrong with surprise, but I think we all need to come to terms with the reality that points are not going to go anywhere, and we just need to master them as quick as possible. So what does that mean? We have these chapters that are spawning. First one being Aurelius, and we have an opportunity here to start to test our systems of points. So we're in the middle of integrating some technologies to create a version 1 of a points program that we're going to run to distribute the AU token. So 5% of the total supply of AU will be airdropped 45 days post the launch of this competition. And there will be 2 categories to participate in points program. And today we're interested in getting feedback and suggestions, talking about other ways that maybe we haven't thought about, that we could entice or improve people's experience or interactions with the protocol, make it as advantageous of us to enter the market and have success. So I'll just quickly cover those 2 categories that we've come up with. The first category is like a behavioral side. So, having people do things socially, like referring friends or engaging with the social content. And that's nice because it's quite a low cost, but it's like a more of an energy put. So we still find value in that. The referral or the referred users, I want to qualify that they must meet a minimum amount of points. So you can't just invite people and great. You actually have to convert. The referred user has to convert into a participant. So they'll have to meet a minimum balance of those points to be credited, which we think is a good protection tool just to help make sure it doesn't get too diluted from non-financial participants, because the main way to earn points is to actually just use Aurelius, of course. So minting AUSD, supplying and borrowing on the market will earn points. We're going to give 4 times more points if you are borrowing, just similar to sort of granaries ratio. We find that that is the most attractive way to incentivize lending markets and get positive results, but you still want, obviously, people to have a low risk option as well. And the final way is like, well, there's actually 2 more ways. One way is to lock Clio. So obviously Clio is the launch partner for Aurelius. We've talked about the integration. And if you want to learn more about Clio and Aurelius, I'll actually be speaking to in about an hour and 40 minutes. So on Twitter. So please come along to that. Details are in the Aurelius Discord for that one, but I'll probably harass everyone and let them know as well that is happening. So you can come and learn more about that relationship and why I think that's really incredible. But the LPing on their platform or locking Clio will also be another way to catch exposure of the Aurelius airdrop, and that's just so that we can align wider. I'm trying to convince Clio that be honestly putting Aurelius in the heading of their exchange, and likewise we should put Clio in the Aurelius platform so that the ecosystem becomes and this is a way for us to align the points with Clio and with Mantle and to a beautiful get everyone plugged into Aurelius. It's definitely I might be biased, but I do think it's the best output from the foundation to date. It's just such a super app. I think it's so much of what we're looking for in really enticing package. So definitely, if you haven't tried Aurelius yet, it is a great opportunity to come and earn some points and get a slice of the 5%. So may be worth your consideration. Cool. So that's sort of the introduction of the Aurelius points in the background. Were there any questions, Eidolon, Yuvi, any thoughts on points that you'd like to share or from
Yeah, sure. I can talk about points in general, and I guess I see points as existing on a spectrum from like super opaque airdrops to hard rewards in DeFi. And like points are probably somewhere in the middle there. But I see it being like, a super opaque reward system, like an airdrop where you don't know any of the like requirements, or points where you don't really know requirements are kind of the most opaque. But then you can have like transparent point systems which are off chain. Then you can kind of have like hybrid on chain points, which then get into like almost O tokens. And then you get back to like, regular governance token rewards and real yield. And all of those have their place in the ecosystem. And the more off chain and more behavioral ones, I think like points especially have like been shown to have a really strong place early on in project life cycles. And I think different people have tried different things, and we're trying to keep it pretty simple and transparent with Aurelius. I think transparency is one of the important things that some point systems and airdrops get really wrong. Like users should probably, know how to get points, and not be like misled. But not that we are doing any of that. It's going to be all transparent. I suppose that I think points are easy to create. It makes it very easy to create user behavior. And, we want to create a points program that creates a positive feedback loop for our users. So, like, we want users to enjoy the points. So I guess we're looking for a lot of feedback as well.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to trust, right? Because if you don't execute the points program right, it will leave users it still counts as like a user to the protocol, even though it's not a token. It's kind of like a sub token, how I think about it, where I mean, I even saw this ridiculous liquid points. I mean, at that point, is it not just a token?
Yeah, like I said, it's all on a spectrum. Yeah, so you
It's
see like
outrageous.
people trading points, you see points coming on chain. You see all of these hybrid, hybrid O tokens are almost the same thing as on-chain points. It's all kind of converging together. It's very interesting to see what everyone comes up with and kind of track the development from when they started. Like I believe, I don't know if you guys know of any earlier. I think Blur was maybe the first project I'm aware of to use points,
True.
and then maybe Friend Tech. I feel like really did some stuff there. There've been a lot of interesting variations.
And I just realized we should have another conversation about this ERC 404. I'd love to have a discussion in the
Oh
future.
yeah, I can also. I mean, I haven't looked too much at ERC 404 and DN 404, but that's another interesting conversation.
Yeah,
Bit of a separate topic though.
totally. I didn't mean to. I don't want to distract us, but just realizing opportunity. So, good question from MPO here. Will old borrows count towards the points program, or will the borrows have to be made after the program has? So this is unfortunately at this point it seems like the latter. So you'll have to. It'll only start once the program commences. I realize this is unfortunate because obviously we don't want to punish early adopters and people that are being, um, I guess ahead of the curve for us. So I'm trying to figure out how to amend that through something. I would hate to have this feeling of like, oh fuck, too early. Excuse my French. So work in progress. But at this stage, I want everyone to be prepared that it might just have to be the latter. Well, and then we might just have to figure out the way forward earlier users. So yeah, that's fortunately a limitation so far. Something that we will have to just get better at as we discover more and more the limitations of what we're using in terms of tooling. So in the end, we might just have to, if we can't get what we want for future, like maybe this experiment runs, and by the end of it, we realize that obviously, if we have it in place, we can obviously launch it on day one next time. It was just one of those things that was put into play, obviously, after the people had already begun initiating their transactions. So the mistake's just not being committed points early enough for Aurelius to get that benefit. So next time, assuming the points program is determined to be a success, which our thesis is that going anywhere, that will play. We'll see, though. We may determine that the surprise airdrop actually was better somehow. So we'll just continue to iterate and improve on how we can ensure that the early adopters are not missing out, because that's an important thing for us.
To touch on, there's a question a little bit earlier about how much synergy it will bring. And some of the responses are that we will maximize the synergy and that the synergy shall be maximized, which is correct. But I'd like to add a little bit to that. The actions that we are incentivizing with points, the synergies that it creates is the Aurelius flywheel, and ultimately it's by design such that when you lend to Aurelius, you get points, and by lending, you decrease the interest rate for borrowing, which means people want to borrow more, which then increases the interest rate for lending, which makes lending more appealing. And that's basically the fundamentals of scaling the lending market. When you by rewarding the minting of AUSD, because the system is rehypothecating to its own lending market, when you deposit collateral to mint AUSD, you also reinforce the cycle on the lending market because those assets are then supplied, which reduces the borrower interest rates, which makes borrowing more enticing. So each action has second and third order effects within the system that ensure that the system continues to scale effectively. Now, when you think about it, if you deposit assets, you deposit collateral and you mint AUSD, by depositing the collateral, it goes to the supply side, which dilutes the rates, which are the rates that go to the stablecoin. If the rates on the stablecoin drop, obviously it would become less enticing, but by lending that collateral on the market, the borrow rates reduce, which makes borrowing more enticing, which then scales up the lending rates. And so the system continues to support itself from each point of avenue, whether you are minting AUSD, simply lending, or borrowing. And so the way that we want to distribute points is by understanding those second and third order effects of which action a user might take. We can target the most effective pathway for scaling. So that's kind of how the synergy works.
Yeah, I think it's also important to remember that points are not like the sole reward system and exist as like a very nice complement to other like harder rewards. So that's just another area where this will keep flywheeling. There will be rewards in, for LPs and for the stability pool, things like that still. It's just points direct a little bit more behavior and make the pot a little sweeter.
It just sort of tells users, hey, this is the best way to participate, basically. But this is like a way you get. That's the sort of energy we're hoping to direct. Ultimately, Aurelius creates its own yield. I wanted to highlight, I guess, one of the things, the outcomes of that rehypothecation, the integrated market, is that for every $1 of collateral of AUSD, about $1.95 goes into TVL more, because not the entire value, but most of the value of the collateral is unlocked. So what we're seeing is a user deposit $1,000, TVL goes up twice, basically. And it really puts in perspective, I guess, how quick Aurelius is going to scale. If people like numbers, we think Aurelius is capable of showing big numbers because it has so many components that can drive into this total TVL number. We're even going to be looking at integrating other modules and other products that will live in the same framework. What we're going to see is it's just like this one massive beast of stack of technology which supports this stable-like coin that people ideally use to exchange mantle. It seems like points is just the right way to, hey, this is, if you want to help us get there, this is the best way to. Fantastic. Because in 45 days, hopefully, enough people have appreciated the big numbers and quick it's, and we have so much speculation that we are able to launch into the optimum condition. Sort of the path that we're trying to lay down. Oh, sorry, I don't. A shame. I had issues.
There's also, I mean, the fundamental kind of justification of points, when you think about it economically, is that if hypothetically the point system runs for, let's just say 3 months as an example, or even let's just say 2 months, we'll use 2 months as an example. If the point system goes for 2 months and then the airdrop is 5% of the supply, or the reward is 5% of the supply, if you were to release 5% of the supply in those 2 months, you would get a lot of mercenary capital that's just like constantly dumping the token. And granted, your TVL will grow due to that mercenary, like generate some revenue, but the you have no power to hold on to that TVL, and the cost of doing so is that by dumping the token over those 2 months, when you get to the end of those 2 months, your asset value has taken a beating, and the revenue that you've generated is no longer sustainable. Whereas with a points program, at least it appears the evidence suggests that you can effectively scale the system and generate revenue because the user activity is still there, but the points don't cost you any market cap. So when you get to the end of that time period and you distribute the assets, the system has already had time to scale. The system has already had time to generate more revenue than it otherwise would, which means that when you distribute those assets, you distribute them at a higher value, and they also deliver a higher value to the users. So during that scaling period, that initial period that protocols generally go through their highest emissions rates in order to attract TVL, but they also take like the biggest beatings in terms of market participants. It kind of mitigates a lot of those effects while still delivering an incentive for users to participate, if that makes sense. So it's a cool mitigation, and I mean, time will tell, but it seems to be pretty effective across the board so far.
Another fun part of points is kind of layering. So not to get too ahead of ourselves, but maybe on some chains in the future that have their own points programs, when there's a chapter there, you'll see layered points, as we've seen a lot of success with by people like like Eigenlayer, EtherFi, Celestia layered airdrops, that kind of thing. All of these have synergy with each other, and we will go to ecosystems that are the best incentivized in order for our users to get the best rewards. So I'm very interested to hear what the community thinks of like the best point systems out there, the chains with the best point systems, that type of thing. Ooh, Manta is a good one. Yeah, they grew so quickly. That's a crazy one. Yeah. Oh yeah, referrals is another big element of that can be involved here. Yeah, I guess I can't believe we haven't talked about Blast yet. Blast and Manta are probably, I mean, Blast isn't even out yet, and it feels like they've defined the metagame a bit. Yuvi, are you blasting off soon?
I have nothing to do with Blast at the moment. I never deposited. I don't know.
Yeah, unfortunately, same. I was pretty much out of my wallet during that time period, and I'm also just so averse to locking these days.
I'm not very active in DeFi beyond just like
Same. Well, I started
researching.
again this week recently. It consumes my life in all other areas of it, but my own wallet is not terribly active.
Yeah, I find the same. I mean, I play around with all of our protocols and do what I can to support, but yeah, I'm definitely not about to deposit funds into the Blast multisig or whatever the heck's going on over there.
Yeah, I guess that's another important point. That I almost feel like we shouldn't have to bring this up, but like we're not going to lock you in for points. Um, except obviously vClio, but that's kind of its own. There's a lot of great reasons to lock sometimes. And of course, make your own choices. But like, we're not going to lock you in our protocol if you want to earn some points. So, feel free to dip your toes in.
do either of you want to comment on the USDC as collateral mercenary liquidity comment from Rolio?
Yeah, I just commented in the chat. Yeah, stablecoins as collateral. Well, I mean, like those kinds of stablecoins, like USDC and USDT as collateral for minting the CDP stablecoin. It's kind of it is an interesting paradigm. It unlocks a lot of it unlocks a lot of AUSD because you can mint a lot closer to essentially a lot closer to 100% loan to value because USDC and USDT are anticipated to be low to no volatility. Which means, yeah, you can deposit, 1,000 USDC and mint a lot of AUSD for that capital. So I guess the concern might be that AUSD gets used to farm a lot of the incentives and can potentially put a lot of pressure on the peg if half of it's being sold off to pair up for liquidity, etc. The mitigations for that are kind of built into Aurelius because if people who are depositing USDC and USDT collateral are minting AUSD aggressively and putting pressure on the peg by selling it off to farm, they're also going to be the first troves to be redeemed or the first positions to be redeemed because they're so close to to minimum collateral ratio. On top of that, it does if like on the lending side, if a lot of mercenary capital is trying to do that, they're still providing the rest of Aurelius users with extremely low borrowing rates on the lending side. And again, all of that yield that's generated through the rehypothecation is directed back to the stablecoin. So it's not the most if you were purely mercenary capital, it wouldn't be a very efficient strategy, and you'd be the first to be redeemed if you put too much pressure on the peg. So it's kind of a self-defeating strategy as well. Whether it's an overall net positive.
It also, I mean, I guess I want to echo some of the things that you're saying. Just people, I mean, since people weren't getting redeemed for like the last couple months on real liquidity, people forgot about redemptions suddenly. But yeah, that's the biggest one, I think, is that they provide like a really strong kind of like peg wall at their redemption relative to unstable collateral. And then also, like you said, like since they're going in the lending market, they provide just like super strong liquidity for the rest of the market, which kind of galvanates everything else. Because like that liquidity will just be sitting there. It's not the average user. It's backing the stable coin, so it'll only go away when users get redeemed, liquidated, or close their positions on the stable coin. It's just like when there's demand to borrow stablecoins earn a lot of yield, earning, the protocol a ton of yield. Like if you look at rates on stablecoins in DeFi right now, up. So it's just overall something you have to look at it in the perspective of the system as a whole and not solely as, like what is the most capital efficient way to borrow, 1 AUSD. Because yes, obviously like that is the stablecoin since they have the lowest CR. But there are a lot of other reasons you may want to borrow against something else that's not a stablecoin. Like you could also there's it just has its place in the system, and of course, if we see that stablecoin markets are not performing, that is something that we're trying for the first time with Aurelius, and we're looking to learn a lot from that. And we think it's going to be something really cool that generates a lot of just positive flywheel activity. But
Oh.
yeah, it's not.
I want to add on a couple extra points if that's all right.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and it might even be the same, but it is just way easier to scale up protocol if you accept stable coins. And it's also easier to get to $1 because if you recall Ethos, we had like a pretty painful and expensive like $1 for coin for a bit there. So this
Yeah, that's actually a great point.
It helps us get to the dollar quicker because there's like they're saying you can redeem against it reliably. So there's like a I guess like a predictable outcome in that way. They kind of provide like a service. And then I guess to top it off strategically, there's going to be 2 borrow side markets, I believe, so far that will be in the So this is for the like component, and that will be USDC. And the reason is that we'll soon be able to accept METH deposits on Aurelius, and users will be able to deposit their METH and then borrow ETH, which will have an incentive layer to help mitigate some of the cost because presumably it'll have, which should drive more supply of ETH, which would be great. And then what a strategy could be, I'm not saying this should be done, you could then swap the ETH for more deposit and sort of loop that up to farm as much as possible. And you can repeat that with USDC, right? So we want to attract a lot of, I think the CDP is the best way to get the most out of that liquidity, like lock the system till such time that it serves its purpose of either being liquidated for some, tragic reason or otherwise used as a redemption wall for everyone else, allowing Mantle ETH participants to go a bit more intense because obviously everyone's a little sore from all the 250% collateral ratio loans on Ethos. We've had a couple of users and open a loan, kind of early and then just immediately getting redeemed on, which is a frustrating user experience. So this will help mitigate a lot of that, along with some other strategies that we're employing, especially on the liquidity side, to sort of strengthen this thing, buffer it up. So I hope that helps through all of the insights, sort of demonstrate, I guess, why it's exciting that we're allowing, Ethos is this beautiful decentralized dollar equivalent or dollar-like instrument. So it's kind of stuck in this like branding niche of like ETH and Bitcoin, pure decentralization, no central bank risk, the thing. Ideally, Aurelius doesn't have those same concerns. It's a different profile, it's a different thing. If people want that, there's Ethos. We think Ethos is going to stand out as the best product eventually. We just hope that Aurelius can sort of scale much quicker and we can sort of port that success and that recognition over to Ethos and then start to see more adoption of, especially Optimus up as a trading network. So any other comments about points? Any other questions about points? I really appreciate CatDad, the insights about Blast and Manta. It's something that I haven't really paid attention to, please. So that was really insightful. I hope your bags go up. Cool. Well, if there's no other questions, we will be detailing the points program more formally in the coming days. So if you do have any other questions, please do leave them, or any other thoughts, please do come ask or share them with us so that we can consider and improve what we've talked about today. But we're just looking forward to putting something out there and seeing if we can actually program, a lot of upside in this commencement and first chapter, just a real buzz for everyone. We're all for hoping that people can deliver some firepower, and we've done our best to present the best stack of technology to date, I think. Really excited for everyone to come and give it a try. There's already some really exciting some growth. If you haven't checked out Cleopatra, you definitely want to do that. Our good friends there. I'll be speaking with them in about an hour and minutes on Twitter. It'll be on the Oath Foundation Twitter, so please come along. Would love to see you there. So, anything from you guys to close?
No, I'm super happy that everyone's here and supporting, and Aurelius is pretty dope. So, by all means, jump in, do what you want to do with it, test it out, let us know. Good stuff.
Anything, Eidolon? Maybe your mic's muted?
Oh, no, I don't have much more to share. But yeah, no, it's not that the stablecoin markets are not the only ones that can be redeemed. It's just because the people can take out loans at such high LTV, and we just expect the market to favor those ones getting redeemed more often. So yeah, excited to detail points further, start layering rewards. Ethos had a lot of, great qualities and still has a lot of great decentralized qualities. The best qualities of Aurelius for me are that it's just integrating the parts of the DeFi ecosystem that are the best and that people know and love. People already use stable coins like USDC and USDT all over DeFi. Aurelius is not trying to be the most decentralized stablecoin. We just want to be a hub of financial activity, and that will be rewarded.
Well said. Well said. Okay, thanks everyone for attending. We'll, I guess, exit the stage. Look forward to more feedback from you. See you next time.